There's rumblings about Scott Peterson again. There's been a lot of Scott Petersons in the news, so I should probably define which Scott Peterson we're talking about, since it seems to be a very common name amongst criminals or accused criminals or just shitty human beings. This is Scott Peterson, Laci Peterson, Scott Peterson, the one from that case. The Los Angeles Innocence Project has initiated an investigation into the 2004 murder conviction of Scott Peterson, citing fresh evidence that supports his claims of innocence and the deaths of his wife, Laci Peterson, and their unborn son, Conner. Scott Peterson's conviction in 2004 for first-degree murder and Laci's death and second-degree murder in Conner's sent shockwaves across the nation. At that time, this was the big true crime story. Despite his death penalty sentence being overturned in 2020, his conviction has remained a contentious issue, drawing attention from legal experts and the public alike. To take you back, the case began in December of 2002 when Laci Peterson mysteriously vanished while 8 months pregnant. Just think, that kid would be, if it would have been born, would be 22 today.
Wow.
That's how far back this goes. Months later, the bodies of Laci and Conner washed ashore in the San Francisco Bay, their advanced state of decomposition complicating the determination of the exact cause of death. Early suspicions pointed towards Scott Peterson, exacerbated by his external affair with Amber Frey. In 2004, Scott endured a 5-month-long trial where prosecutors alleged that he murdered his family to collect a hefty life insurance payout. His conviction was partially rooted in his behavior after Laci's disappearance and his recorded conversations with Amber Frey, which portrayed him as a dishonest and manipulative person. Since his conviction, Scott Peterson has resided in San Quentin State Prison. Adapting to the challenges of incarceration, his charismatic demeanor earned him the moniker Scotty Too Hottie among supporters and admirers.
Well, do you remember what he looked like back then? He was, hot.
And is that why people like? I can imagine Scott Peterson gets a lot of love letters in prison, because that seems to be how screwed up our world is. The legal battles surrounding Scott Peterson's case have been protracted and very intense. In a significant development in 2020, the California Supreme Court overturned his death penalty sentence due to flaws in the trial process. While his conviction remained intact, this marked a turning point and the ongoing pursuit of a new trial. In the year 2024, the Los Angeles Innocence Project now has undertaken Scott Peterson's case. New evidence has emerged, including updated witness statements that suggest a potential link between Laci's murder and a December 2002 burglary near the Petersons' residence. The organization intends to perform fresh DNA testing on a blood-stained mattress discovered in proximity to the crime scene. Scott Peterson steadfastly maintains his innocence, and the involvement of the Los Angeles Innocence Project has injected some optimism among those who believe he may have been wrongfully convicted. His attorney, Pat Harris, conveyed enthusiasm for the organization's efforts to establish Scott's innocence. And you reached out to the Los Angeles Innocence Project for a comment. And
I did. And this just in literally 5 minutes ago, before we started recording here, the Los Angeles Innocence Project represents Scott Peterson and is investigating his claim of actual innocence. We have no further comment at this time. And we are not doing interviews at this time as well. So they pointed me to the Superior Court of California, County of San Mateo Courthouse website. The motions will be publicly available there soon, it says. Mm-hmm. So really, I clicked on it and it takes me to some portal that I don't have access to. Mm-hmm. So that was a big fat egg. 0 there.
Yeah, I go here, but we can't give you access to exactly what you're looking for.
Yeah, so I'm gonna keep digging, but it looks like, the mum's the word at this point. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just typed in Scott Peterson under their smart search, under the search criteria, and it wants me to enter a record number. It's like, nah, I'm not going to fight this hard to find information that should be readily available. So it's just frustrating that they're not going to give an interview. I really would like to get some information out about this, because those of us back in 2002 and 2004, when all of this was going on, we were captivated by it. It was on the freaking news 24/7. Mm-hmm. So we all kind of were invested in it. Here's this lovely family, woman about to give birth to a boy. They look like the perfect family, and then it all falls apart. I mean, it was the perfect story to have on the news, and we all want to know what happened.
Yeah. Well, and you go back and you look because there wasn't. This is a case where there wasn't a lot of evidence that directly tied Scott Peterson to the murder itself. It was all the circumstantial evidence, and there's a lot of it. I mean, if you go back and remember some of it, he gave inconsistent statements that were conflicting about his whereabouts and activities on the day that Laci disappeared. He had the affair going on with Amber Frey.
He didn't know that he was even married.
Yeah, which he kept hidden from his wife and family. Raised questions, obviously, about his character. Doesn't mean that you're having an affair, you're going to murder your wife or something like that. But, it certainly shows a lack of judgment and a ability to do some fairly nefarious shit. Lack of emotion. Observers, investigators noted Scott's apparent lack of emotion and concern for his missing wife, which seemed very unusual for a husband in that situation. He was he kind of got involved in some things, but it was like he was working the phone bank, for the, the whatever, bullshit cause of the moment was. It wasn't like, oh my God, this is, my wife that is dead. He sold Laci's car and considered selling the house. It was reported that he sold Laci's car, was considering that house shortly after the disappearance, actions that were perceived as kind of uncharacteristic, again, for someone whose spouse was just missing, false statements to family and friends, his behavior, his appearance, including dyeing his hair, carrying a large amount of cash on him at all times. And then there was phone calls, too. There were reports of suspicious phone calls and messages, including claims that he told some individuals that Laci was missing before she was publicly known to be. And then,
that's a problem.
And then the bodies, they were found in the Bay Area where Scott had admitted to going fishing on the day Laci disappeared.
New boat.
On a new boat. Yep. Going fishing on the day that they disappeared, and that's where the bodies were found. So either Scott Peterson has absolutely horrible luck and all of these things lined up to be the perfect storm of, God, you look really guilty, but maybe you're not, or you're really guilty and you're just a really shitty liar. And, people... maybe not a shitty liar, because I think a lot of people still buy this. The fact that the Los Angeles Innocence Project is getting behind it. That's an interesting one.
It is. And it would be interesting to see what they've come up with, because I think this could be from the media, that the media painted him as the murderer. They wanted somebody to pin this on. But every inconsistency that you just talked about is really significant.
Yeah, the media did paint him as they wanted the villain. They found the villain. They made the villain. But at the same point, there was reason for it. It wasn't just, let's make this guy out to be a horrible look at the story. Look at all the red flags. Yeah, there's a reason he was looked at as a villain. It wasn't just, out of nowhere.
And wasn't there some other story from Modesto, California, too, of another weird murder and an affair and something? I can't remember. Chandra
Levy.
Yes.
Wasn't that Gary Condit and Chandra Levy?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, but wasn't it like the same time? It was like, what's in the water around there?
Yes, that was around that same time. And then 9/11 happened, and we suddenly stopped caring about Chandra Levy.
You're right, because that was in May of 2001.
Yep. It was a big story at that moment in time. And then everyone was like, oh, and Gary's going to speak in this interview. And wasn't Gary Condit, wasn't he like a politician of some sort? I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, former Representative Gary Condit. Yep.
Yeah.
So this entire area, this part of the United States, we are all just focused on it, because there really wasn't anything going on until, 9/11. You're right.
Yeah.
But we were just glued and locked into this story. It was weird.
This case, I think also contextually became escapism. As well, for America at that point in time, because we were still reeling from 9/11. That's all we were talking about. That's all that was in the news every single day. Every story was something relating to 9/11 or the war that was going to be happening. And America had gone from this healthy or shitty diet of Britney Spears and Michael Jackson and Gary Condit. And I remember there was a great Onion headline that had Britney Spears with the snake around her. And it was like, the world realizes all the bullshit that we don't care. It was something like really just making fun of all the bullshit that we used to care about, we don't anymore. I think it was like on the desktop in the studio. at our radio station at the time. It was like our backdrop that we put up because it was very,
Guaranteed.
very true of what that moment was like. But yeah, it was I think the first, I mean, and keep in mind, 2002, we didn't have podcasts. True crime was kind of a thing, but we're talking like mainly Dateline. And, some of those specials that you'd see, I don't know if even ID Discovery was even around then, but it was an emerging genre that we were becoming obsessed with. And this is one of those initial cases in the early 2000s that really, I think, pushed that genre onto the map.
Well, and it started the fascination with us, nosing into people's lives that, and coming up with our own jury of, are they guilty or not? And a lot of times we ended up thinking, yeah, they are guilty. I mean, we all, and I speak as the public, we've all convicted Scott Peterson. So I'm curious to know what in the world they've got that could exonerate him.
I'd be very curious as to, and how exonerating is it going to be? Is it going to be enough where it's like, look, this is new evidence that warrants a new trial? Or is it enough to truly, truly exonerate him that proves that it couldn't have been him? But I don't know. To me, there's just so much here. Again, he's either the most unlucky person in the world. And that happens sometimes where just weird circumstances and it's like, no, I didn't have anything to do with it. It's weird that this all kind of lines up and you look guilty for something you didn't do, but this was a lot of stuff.
Yeah, it was. So hopefully they've got some DNA that, that they can put forth and say, hey, this wasn't him. This was somebody else.
But at the end of the day, it was probably him.
Sick of the ads?
We are too.
Start listening with no commercials now and get access to all of our episodes in advance of everyone else.
Become a True Crime Today Premium Plus subscriber on Apple Podcasts.
Search True Crime Today Premium Plus on Apple Podcasts or go to our podcast page and sign up now.
True Crime Today Premium Plus.
Sign up now.